I'm mainly fond of serious plot-driven shows that display honest-to-god narrative, characters, and an actual point, but that doesn't mean I can't like the other anime. Romps of Flash with little depth for the sake of being fun, if a certain criteria is met. First off, it would have to understand just what it really is, to pick a direction that fits and weave it together while amping things up. If it fails to do this, does the same thing in a repetitious manner, or tries too hard, it'll end up as a boring, uninspired mess in the long run. On the other hand, if it doesn't know what it is, and tries to go towards territory that doesn't work with the material it has, it'll end up being a bland anime with a bland story, characters, etc. A pick your poison situation that is rarely avoided, but when it is, it can feel like a godsend. Which leads to one of my guiltiest pleasures that I'm about to review, Asobi ni Ikuyo, a show with this in mind. Catgirl Aliens. In fact, these fan service dispensing, candy-colored haired nekomimis are the main centerpiece of this anime. Asobi ni Ikuyo is an adaptation of the light novel by Okina Kamino of the same name and was directed by Yoichi Ueda and written by Katsuhiko Takayama, who's also involved with writing anime like Fullmetal Alchemist 2003, F: A Tale of Memories, and the cult classics Boku no Pico and its sequels. Is this the anime version of Catnip or is it a hairball? Sit back, relax, and go as I review Asobi ni Ikuyo.
To boldly go where no sexy alien catwoman from a planet full of sexy alien catwomen has gone before.
In a world where this can protect you from bullets, we meet our main character, Kyo Kakazu, an average teenager who's average and stuff. He has a hip and cool uncle complete with shades and an attitude so badass, he practically creates supernovas with it. Anyway, he decides to help his nerdy nephew get a girlfriend, much to Kyo's modesty. It's here where we are introduced to Eris, who's a Catgirl alien! Yes, Eris belongs to a technologically advanced race of cat people known as Catians, who seem to love them skin-tight supersuits. After drinking one sip of beer, passing out, and waking up with an almost naked Catgirl in his bed, the plot begins to thicken. Kyo is friends with Manami Kinjo and Aoi Futaba, who seem like everyday teenage girls but aren't what they seem, the former aspiring to become a CIA agent and the latter being a government agent with mysterious teleportation powers. We come to learn that Eris and her fellow Catians came with the intention of establishing peaceful relations and to research our planet. However, when this is revealed, things escalate as their characters become targets. Eris gets kidnapped at some point, government gets involved, and secret societies come into play. Thanks to these circumstances, Kyo's house is turned into a Catian embassy, which leads to these four characters having to live together where things truly begin. There will be guns, action, explosions, romance, catgirls, badass uncles, burgers, Shelby GT500s, science stuff, robots, spaceships, cat worshippers, and heat. However, little does anyone know that in the shadows, one faction seeks to undo what has been established in more ways than one. Yeah, I'm going to say it here now that this show isn't complex. That isn't to say that there isn't anything to shake things up. There are events that try to add situations of emotion, conflict, vulnerability, drama, and high stakes, but it's mostly shooty explosion, happy sunshine, jiggle superfly. Right off the bat, the show stresses its own over-the-top antics and sense of ridiculousness, using the what-if Catgirl Aliens came to Earth scenario to power the show's sci-fi, harem, comedy, and action elements. A mixture that creates really, what, and occasionally, what the fuck? In one sauce.
Those elements mixed together is definitely like a sauce. What?
It doesn't even try to hide it, and what you see is what you get. The comedy isn't all clever or shocking, sometimes playing with the whole Eris being an alien catgirl thing. Not exactly highbrow, they make Eris go wild with maracas as she acts like a drug junkie after sniffing catnip while in heat. It's at least amusing. Characters don't have much in the way of development. This is an ecchi romantic comedy after all, and boy does it shove that fact in your face. As you can expect, there's a love insert shape here, though it's an interesting one if you think about it. Kyo's standard for an anime like this, an average guy who's awkward but has a heart of gold with a hero complex to match, even if he could be a bit of a goody two-shoes. All the while, you have these ladies, one of which is an alien, while the others just so happen to be trained in combat, firearms, explosives, and provide some of the show's more balls-to-the-wall action scenes. In other words, it's a love insert shape here of a guy who attracted the affections of young women who could probably kill him in under 10 seconds. I would call this a self-insertion, but then again, who wouldn't want a girlfriend who could beat the shit out of almost anybody? As for the others, we get what's on the tin, but nothing more in-depth. The other catgirls do stuff, the villain isn't remarkable by any means, the secret society people mainly serve to set up what's coming next, this blonde chick loves A&W, and Kyo's badass uncle is a badass. Who they are wasn't a big priority, and it avoids answers to some of the questions I may have. How does Aoi have her powers, for example? It says she has no family to turn to because of them, but that's all the concrete info we get about her past. Plus, for a show that involves highly advanced technology as a running plot element, it's not talked about a whole lot, especially when it pulls the "it's like magic" bullshit, and if anything, I'm not sure the show itself knows either. Now you may be thinking, Hollow, this is sounding pretty generic when you come right down to it. Why do you like the show as much as you do? The answer? Almost everything else. You see, I can't really judge Asobi ni Ikuyo the same way I would a Madoka Magica, a Fate's Day Night, or hell, even a School Days. The standard for what the show strives for is too different, especially if your opinion doesn't constitute it. The story is more like a cooking pot for whatever events the writer will want happening, and it's used to create the
sauce.
From having two teenage girls fending off assassins while naked, to riding a motorcycle down a train tunnel while being hailed by machine gun fire, to dodging cannon fire during an infiltration mission while wearing skimpy bikinis while being filmed, to putting on skin-tight suits. in space! We go from having a party to a space battle in just the span of 12 episodes, the start and end of an anime full of a variety of ways to keep you coming back. And you know what's odd? It does all of this and not only make its variety constant, but it even maintains actual structure too! All this makes shutting off your mind and enjoying a breeze. It's unlike, say, AIC Infinite, a show that expects you to keep your mind shut but makes the task nearly impossible because of how many problems you can pick from it as if it were an apple tree. Asobi ni Ikuyo managed to do for me what other shows of its type tend to fail at. Deliver an actual experience. If you still couldn't tell before, Asobi ni Ikuyo bathes in its own excessiveness that culminates in an experience that all boils down to being the anime equivalent of fast food. It technically isn't good for you in mass quantities, but then again you don't have much cash and there are worse options. For what it's worth, this is the best possible outcome I could think of for a show like this. Maybe it's my tolerance level, but I don't mind a show like this if it's done in a way that uses its strength instead of royally fucking around. A show that gets it. One that understands and uses its tools to make a
sauce.
And it's a fairly tasty
Sauce.
But how's the look of the
Sauce.
Produced by AIC Plus, Asobi ni Ikuyo's presentation is mostly appropriate for the task at hand, but not all is handy-dandy. Visually, the show paints its picture with vibrant colors and lighting that brings the show's setting to life, as well as some CGI usage. Granted, it sticks out like a sore thumb, but they do fit the show's art style to an extent. The animation, however, is pretty average. When nothing intensive is happening, the show animates about as well as any other modern anime of its kind would. When you get to the action or other sequences that are intensive, things take a dynamic approach where the quality will vary depending on what's needed. A firefight will move differently than a motorcycle set piece or get the fuck off the boat sequence. It still displays choppiness and isn't very fluid. Not exactly Fate Zero quality with this one, but rather chooses to go with what's necessary instead of going all out. In other words, the show plays things safe with its visuals, which ends up holding it back. Audio's where things get a bit shaky. The Japanese dub of Asobi ni Ikuyo is surprisingly well done for the most part. Characters get the emotion required and are believable in terms of how they connect, especially in parts when things ramp up or when there's something on the line. Voices fit their roles, what with Monami sounding like a tough but caring teenage girl character, Aoi being shy on the outside but serious on the inside, and Eris being boing boing central. Everyone else sounds fine too, though you can add Kyo to the list of male protagonists, voiced by an actress. Last time I checked, I wasn't watching Naruto. But then you get to the English dub, and I have to say, at best it's average. At worst, you'll be subjected to voice acting flatter than an iPad. The worst offender would most definitely be Kyo's actor, who sounds exactly like that. Don't believe me?
Lots of military jets today. Uncle Yuichi. No thanks, I'm underage. Yeah, but humans don't have kitty ears or a tail, do they? Aoi, because of things like last night, I need to be able to protect you guys.
How flat is an iPad mini?
7.2 millimeters thin.
And how flat is Kyo's English dub? Damn! The music for the show is energetic with its tropical and sci-fi themes, using guitars and other instruments with a bit of electronic beats for certain tracks. They fit within the show setting and even provide some awe when listening. The orchestral tracks, on the other hand, are a bit of a mixed bag. They mostly fuel the action scenes and while swooping and synergizing in areas, sound a bit artificial and are stock in terms of themes. Still, this is not a weak soundtrack overall and outputs plenty of expressiveness that I wasn't expecting when listening to them by themselves. Sure, there are tracks that don't connect as they should, but when the music sticks to its main themes, it works. It's an above average soundtrack, and coupled with other audio elements and the visual presentation, it all amounts to a decent presentation in general. It's not going to catch your senses in a rapture of visual and audio bliss, but it does get the job done. Asobi ni Ikuyo is a guilty pleasure of mine, nothing more and nothing less. This isn't top of the heap though, but it does rank fairly high up. Yes, this is a blatant fan service action anime with all the stops that make it so, but it knows that, and it makes sure that it does its job, that it never stops completely giving a shit about doing its own thing. However, that's based on personal enjoyment and my own outlook on these kinds of shows. When judged based on merit, it isn't really that good. Despite the twist, it really is an ecchi harem with balls deep action and doesn't excel in much else. If anything, it technically isn't a good anime to watch. But that should be expected from something you like that beyond the smoke and mirrors is something you would otherwise dislike. The best word to describe my feelings toward this anime would probably be satisfying and nothing more. Like having an intense sugar rush, but instead of getting diabetes, nothing else happens. So there it is, Kitty Vickies. My thoughts on Asobi ni Ikuyo, one of my guilty pleasures in anime that I can recommend, but with half conviction. So as we come towards the end of the review, bottom line, Asobi ni Ikuyo is a satisfying blast despite the odds. I surprisingly liked it.